tax advisor manager here at Mullen Associates, and I got this handsome guy here with me.
Charles Steinmetz. Worked with this guy over a long time, senior tax professional.
So today we're going to be going over kind of the stimulus check. I know some of you may have gotten it, some of you may not have yet, but we're going to provide you with some data points and answer some of the most commonly asked questions. While we're going through here, please go ahead and type in what questions that you have, and we'll go ahead and document those. We're not going to answer them interactively right out the gate, but we are going to have a section at the end where we kind of get to every single one of the questions that you ask. So please go ahead and type down those questions, and we'll get to them as we get there. Okay. So I think Charlie's going to go ahead and lead us off here.
Yep, I will. And so starting out, we're going to go with what is it? So the stimulus itself, people are receiving payments, and there's actually a different aspect to that. The stimulus by itself, when they pass the law, is actually a credit to your 2020 tax return. And that's important in answering, is it taxable, is it not, how it interacts with everything. And so if you bear with me for just a second, I printed out the code itself to read it to verify that, but it's talking about in the case of an eligible individual, which we'll get to in a minute, there will be allowed as a credit against the tax imposed, et cetera, over the first taxable year beginning in 2020. So I'm not lying, that's what it is. And so involving, is it taxable or not, everybody is thinking about how does it affect the taxes? I want to kind of draw something out because this everybody is thinking, adding that as a credit helps alleviate is it taxable or not? So first we're thinking, so in 2020, right, we're going to imagine that, let's say you have a refund of $1,000. I draw horribly, but let's say $1,000. So we're talking about this stimulus credit. Let's suppose, we'll get to all the numbers here in a second, but just to give one out, $1,200. Some of you may be receiving $1,200 as this stimulus payment. And so we're thinking, I'm going to get $1,000. They're going to take off $1,200 because I'm already getting that amount. Therefore, I'm going to owe $200. And that's not cool. We agree that's not cool. It's also not how it is working. So this credit that is happening is first going to go in and add, again, a horrible drawing, that $1,200 to your $1,000 refund for 2020. And so in theory, you would be getting $2,200 on that refund. The stimulus payments that are happening now are in advance of that credit. So yes, in a sense, you're going to have to reconcile that $1,200 that you already got. However, you're going to end up the intent with the same $1,000 refund that you would have in the first place. So again, it's a credit on 2020 taxes. This is an advance of that. So is it taxable? No, that's not the intent. The intent is to give you, not wait for April of next year to get that, but to have access to it earlier.
Okay, cool. So hopefully that clears up a little bit. And we're going to get into some of the minutia of this as we go. But again, if you have questions, please type them in. The next question is, how much am I going to get? And so this is a great question. And the answer to just about every tax question ever asked is it depends, right? That's what I tell my advisors all the time. It depends is a great answer. I'm like the weatherman. I could be wrong every time and still keep my job. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So in the case here, though, how much it is depends on how many basically how large your family is and what their age is. So first and foremost, let's talk about the couple. If you're a married couple, right? So if you're a single person, it's $1,200. If you are a married couple, it's $1,200 each for a total of $2,400. Now there are some small additions for children, but only those under the age of 17 in 2019. Okay, so 2019 is kind of the catalyst year, if you will. Like Charlie's talking about, this is a credit that is being prepaid, and it's really going to belong on your 2020 tax return. But the catalyst year is really 2019. So filing your 2019 tax return, they want to primarily base it off of that, at least the prepayment of it, and as well as children under the age of 17, they will qualify for an extra $500 each. Now, for those of you who have children over the age of 16, so 17 plus, we're going to address that here in a little bit. So we'll get there. But I'll give you an example. For myself and my wife, it's $1,200 each for $2,400. And then I have an 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And they're the best thing that's ever happened to me. But it's $500 for each of them. So I get to have my cake and eat it too, if you will. And so in this case, it's that $2,400 plus the $1,500 from the 3 kids for a grand total of $3,900. That's just my specific example, right? In Charlie's example with he and his wife, it's $1,200 each for a total of $2,400. Sorry, ladies, this handsome guy is taken. Okay, now, so that kind of covers the how much, and you can see in the slide here the individuals and the couples, and then there also is head of household. Now, the head of household amount is not different. It's not more. It's not less. Who qualifies in order to receive the stimulus does change a little bit based on head of household, and so we'll get into those who qualifies amounts here in a second.
That was still you, actually.
Is that still me talking about the who qualifies?
Happy to. Well, the age limits and everything, but I'm happy to jump in. We can just jump in back and forth. Happy to. We like doing it. So as far as the who qualifies, there's some keywords in some of this. And so again, jumping to the code itself to make sure we're using the right terminology. So it references taxpayer, right? So it defines taxpayer as one who has qualifying income, also a catchword, of at least $2,500 or has income, I'll read this one a little bit better, net income tax liability is greater than 0 or gross income greater than standard deduction. There's a magic in there. Your income is sufficient. You have to file a tax return, basically, is the or. If you're not in that position, you don't have to file a tax return. What is this qualifying income? So that's earned income, Social Security, or a string of things that's relating to pension type income. And so those are the people who would necessarily qualify. If you literally have zero income from any source whatsoever, you wouldn't qualify in this particular case. The eligible individual is talking people that are other than a non-resident alien individual. If you live in Australia and you're an Australian citizen and you just happen to have U.S. income, you're not going to qualify for this. That it helps define stuff for those who are self-employed. Your earned income does matter, but it's in essence the net income that comes out of that. What is your after expenses? If you're super either good or bad, but after taxes, we're looking to get your taxes low as possible. If your expenses end up getting you down to $1,000 of income and that's all you have on taxes, then you're under that $2,500. Potentially, again, you wouldn't qualify. And then estates and trusts also don't qualify. So again, just about everybody, really, it's if you have to file a tax return and you're the taxpayer or spouse, it's coming to you. If you have other specific income that qualifies as this earned income of $2,500 or more, then that will count as well.
Yeah, so let me jump then into the who qualifies part, because who qualifies is also kind of what Charlie was alluding to, also is based on your income, right? And so going over the specific income thresholds, Clark, if we'll just back up one slide. Thank you. You can see the numbers listed here, but ultimately these are the initial numbers, not the final numbers. And I'm going to explain, okay? So you can see under the $1,200 marker here, it's individual. So a single person who would qualify for $1,200 has to have an AGI. AGI is adjusted gross income. Okay, so it's by and large, it's your income. But there are some things that come off of the top of that, kind of like Charlie talked about, the business expenses can come off of the top of your adjusted gross income, student loan interest payments, certain retirement contributions, and those types of things can reduce your adjusted gross income. But mostly your adjusted gross income is kind of your income, okay? And so that's based on the filing on your tax return, not just a number you decide, right? So that is something that the IRS has record of that they can point to. Okay, either on your 2018 or 2019 tax return. They only go off of 18 if you haven't filed 19. If you have filed 19, then that's the one. That's the kind of the superseding year. Okay, it's the one they prioritize.
To chime in on there, just for those who are looking at themselves and saying, well, how do I know what my number is, what the IRS is looking at? If you have not yet filed 2019 on your 2018 tax return, the form itself, you're looking for line 7. That's your AGI. If you have filed your 2019 tax return, it's line 8B, as in beta, and that will have your AGI. So if you're wondering, where is mine? What is mine? That's where to look. Again, 18 is line 7, 19 is 8B.
Okay, thank you. And so once you arrive at that adjusted gross income number, you're looking at from $1 or 0 or whatever up to $75,000 for an individual, you would qualify for 100% of the $1,200. But as soon as you have a couple of dollars over that $75,000 limitation, up to $99,000 of adjusted gross income, there's a prorated reduction of how much you would get on that $1,200. So halfway between $75,000 and $99,000, you would get half of that $1,200, if that makes sense. Okay, there's some math to it, but we're going to show you a calculator where you can actually go to the forms that Charlie referenced, pull that number, go onto our website, enter your information in the calculator to see how much you ought to have received. The reality is at this point, if you have filed a 2019 tax return, number 1, and if you received a refund, number 2, and if that refund was direct deposited into your bank account, number 3, by the time you're watching this, you will have probably already received your stimulus payment. So now either you got less than what you were expecting, you want to know why, and that's why you're here, or you haven't got it yet, and you're wondering why you haven't, and that's why you're here. Okay, and so we're going to explain all of that. But the single threshold is $75,000, right? So at $75,000 of adjusted gross income, beyond that, but before $99,000, you get a reduced amount. At $99,000 of adjusted gross income, you phase out entirely the stimulus payment. So you will not receive it. You won't receive it this year. You won't receive it on the 2020 tax return. Like Charles was saying, it's a prepayment of a credit. You won't get it, period. Okay. Now these thresholds, these same kind of rules apply, just the numbers are different. For head of household filers, that phase out starts at $112,500. And then for married filing joint filers, it starts at $150,000 of adjusted gross income. So those are kind of the numbers that you're looking for to determine whether or not you would qualify. If you haven't received it yet, and it seems like you ought to have, it may be because you did not qualify to receive that. The media is throwing around that $75,000 figure like it is the end-all be-all figure. The reality is it's not. And so I have had a countless amount of people ask me, now, Kevin, I'm not supposed to receive that because my income's over $75,000, right? Well, but you're head of household, so you get a higher threshold. Or, oh, well, but you're married, so you get a higher threshold. So it's important that you understand that kind of when you will receive it at what thresholds. Okay. So that kind of covers between what Charlie talked about and what I discussed, the who qualifies. So let's go ahead and move forward to some of those graphics, Clark, where we can show them the calculator and such. Okay. So this is where you're going to see on our website, which, Clark, if you can post that link to our calculator in the chat, I would appreciate it. And so this is where you can actually go and answer these questions, right? So of course, the first question is, did you file your 2019 return? Because if not, then our calculator needs to send you the 2018 numbers on the 2019 numbers. If you filed 2019, you indicate yes, you put your filing status, whether you're single, married, filing jointly, or head of household, and then you'll put your adjusted gross income number down and how many dependents that you claimed on your 2019 return. It is important that these are dependents under the age of 17, but make sure that you don't count the kiddos 17 or older in 2019. It doesn't matter when they turn 17. If they turn 17 in 2019, it doesn't matter when. It just matters that it was between January 1 to December 31. So if they turn 17 on December 31, then they're a no-go. Okay. So there's no proration of the amount of time. It just has to do with the fact of were they 17 and 19, or were they 17 and 2020, and or later. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one, Clark, and the one after that, because we covered the who qualifies. So now this is kind of a natural segue into kids, because we're not now discussing the kids under the age of 17, because we already are familiar with that. We already know where that's at. You're going to get $500 for each of them that you claimed. But now let's talk about kids who are 17 or older. So 17-year-olds who are going to school full time, or still in high school, they're not working or anything like that. It seems like they ought to qualify. The reality is there has to be a cutoff somewhere, and they chose to cut it off at 17. Now, it's probably just like the child tax credit, which also cuts off at the age of 17. And I don't know if that's related to child labor laws or what. It's the only thing that I know of is that's what 17. Yep,
So,
exactly.
So looking at the code again with everything, when I was referencing everything there, they specify children or dependents that classify under this code section.
Yep.
That code section was children under 17.
Yep.
So that they had, like you said, draw a line somewhere.
Yep, there's got to be a line somewhere. That's it. So I know it makes it even unfair or whatever, but that's the reality of the situation and what was passed. So now 17 plus, no credit. So now the next question becomes, well, they're individuals. Will they get their own $1,200 stimulus credit, right? Because individuals qualify for these credits. And let's say they had income, and let's say they were working. Okay, so now this gets a little more complicated because it really depends on if they qualified as your dependent or not. Because if you claim them, even if they earned more than $2,500, like Charlie is referencing, they would not receive a $1,200 credit. So you won't get a $500 credit for them, and they won't get a $1,200 credit. So unfortunately, them's the breaks. Okay. Now, beyond the kids who are just 17 or 18, let's talk about your college students. Okay, because the college students can actually be working, right, and earning these $10,000, $15,000 and going to school, and they're doing great work, right? And because going to school and working at the same time, that's tough. And so they are going to be asking you, do I qualify? Or maybe some of you are joining us, right, and asking, do I qualify for this stimulus payment? And ultimately, I'm going to kind of go a little bit down the rabbit trail. I promise you it matters. The information is helpful. But ultimately, the tuition deductions for a college student are claimed by the person who claims the college student. Okay? And that matters a lot. Because if mom and dad are paying for college and are paying for room and board, paying for the meal plan, and paying for the kiddo, or even the kids taking out student loans, right? But are supported by with health insurance and the roof over their head, the clothes on their back, and the car, and all that kind of stuff, right? If the child is being supported by the parents, the college student being supported by the parents, then the parents would qualify to claim the child, which means they qualify to claim tuition. Often that tuition is far more beneficial on the parents' return than the kids' return. And those strategies are really important because they can save a lot of dollars. But employing those really beneficial strategies also removes the ability for the child to receive the $1,200 stimulus credit. Oftentimes, the difference in how much the tuition benefits is worth more on the parents and more than $1,200. So if you filed your tax return with us a couple of months ago, and if you didn't, you probably ought to have, right? Wink, wink, nod, nod. Then, and if we get the advice that, hey, you really need to claim the kiddo, the tuition is worth more on your tax return, qualified, etc., then the kiddo wouldn't have received the stimulus payment anyways. One of the stipulations in the bill is that if the kids claim themselves, but they really qualify to claim themselves, then they're getting that credit. We'll use the generous word erroneously, right? Because the IRS might choose to use the word fraudulently, right? But we'll use the generous word erroneously. They claim themselves; they should not have claimed themselves. They end up receiving the $1,200 stimulus credit, but really they shouldn't have. And so in this case, we've got a college student who's being claimed by their parents, and because they're over the age of 16, they're not getting the $1,200 credit. And they might be receiving their $1,200 when their classmate is their $1,200. And they think that something is wrong, that they were due the check, but that it's wrong. The reality is different situations, different facts and circumstances lend to different results and different outcomes. And so while that may not be a popular answer, we at Mullen Associates can expertly explain how and why a specific situation a child did or did not receive a stimulus credit. So as I told you, it is a little complicated. I was kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but it's important that you understand, at least on a surface level, that why these kids may or may not receive this $1,200 stimulus check. The easy answer is if they are claimed by their parents, they will not receive the check. Okay, that's the easy answer. That's a quick kind of 5-second answer there.
And to piggyback with that, you may intentionally do something on your taxes so that they don't get it. The child may ask, well, I want to file on my own so that I can get the $1,200 credit. Working and looking at, again, those numbers, if that college, the benefit to your taxes is going to be significantly more than $1,200, you're going to tell your college student, nice try, French fry. No, I'm claiming you because it's more beneficial to do it this way. Again, the numbers be better for it that way.
Yeah, the education credits are $2,500 in most cases, or in many cases. And so I get losing the $1,200 for your own student might sting, but ultimately the $2,500 may be worth more. And so the answer to that question is kind of a tough one, and you really need a tax advisor to expertly direct you through those kind of complicated waters. So give us a call. We're happy to help. Okay. Why don't we move on? Okay, we'll pass this one to Charlie.
Great. So we'll jump immediately into the resources that are here. One more piece on the who's going to get the stimulus, and additive to that is there anything that's going to hold that, again, the advance of that stimulus credit back? There are some things that can. There are very few. The most common one that's going to be is if you're back on child support, don't expect it to come. They're going to take it. I can't exactly guarantee where it's going to go, but they're not going to give it to you. There's also apparently no prohibitions in the CARES Act. If you have your direct deposit going to a bank that you've defaulted on payments on, they'll probably take it. And if there's any collections against you that have a judgment, again, it's not a guarantee. There's nothing that's prohibiting that from being garnished, as it were. If you are owe back taxes to the IRS, which is different, or if you're back on student loans, it's not going to stop the advance of that stimulus. They're still going to send it out. Reading today that they published something, those who are involved in bankruptcy, it's expected that it's not counting towards your yearly income as far as that bankruptcy type deal. It's not guaranteed, but that's the expectation. That was updated, I think it was yesterday, and so it's pretty fresh on that. That's the expectation for that. But as far as getting to what we have on that slide, as far as $9 and resources, the IRS published a few days ago, and just the other day, a couple of resources for those that could receive aid as far as how to get information to the IRS so they can get that advance stimulus to you. And that's on their website. It's a very careful thing when you're on either SBA for the business loans or the one of the IRS's. It's they never go to the .com website, so be careful when you're doing searches. But so on the IRS page, we have an image here of the site itself. Is it possible to do a live piece of how to get to this page? It's really easy. They put it on the very front of their page. IRS we worked a few years ago. It's supposed to go user friendly. They put a grain of salt, but that's the user friendly side of things. So we're just checking to see if we can get that going. So here on the IRS page, and this is irs.gov, just scrolling down, look at the big picture there that has the money on it. That's the economic impact payments. If you were to click on that, it's going to take you to this screen. So for those who have filed and need to provide the information to the IRS for the direct deposit information or want to check on it, or if you are not required to file a tax return and would still like them to submit to a specific bank account. It provides these tools here for you. So the one on the left is the most current one that was recently updated. That has to do with you can check your status. There's a lot of stuff on it, guys. They just put this up yesterday, and it's a brand new thing. You may possibly get something saying status not available. It's not that you're not getting it; they're just working on it. The first wave of these again advanced stimulus payments is happening now. It's not the only thing, and that's what we started at the beginning saying that it was through 2025. Nobody is not getting this. If you don't get your check this week, next week, the week after, the next 4 months, it's not that it's not going to happen. Again, it's calculating a 2025 return. So you're just in advance of it. And so this is a way for you to, that button there, get my payment. That's the left for those who have filed or are having that way. I'm going to check on that. On the right side of the screen, it has to do with non-filers. Who are non-filers? Let's say you have Social Security that is your 100% income, maybe $5 an interest chase, but Social Security only. Social Security is magic on the tax side of things, and it's not 0 or 100% taxable. It's taxable based on income. If you have no other income, your Social Security is taxable at 0. You don't have to file a tax return. Now, in this case, Social Security, by and large, is sent to folks direct deposit. Now, the direction with everything is that you don't have to do anything. They're going to trace how you're getting Social Security payments and send that stimulus advance via that manner. That's what's supposed to happen. If you want to take that extra step and have it go to either your account or just make sure they've got it, that's your option on the back side for these non-filers. Your information here, there's a button there for that as well. And so again, you should not have to do anything. The action is required on your part. If you just don't trust the system, you're not entirely wrong. If you don't trust the system, then here's an option for you. Again, on the other side of this, checking your status. When it came up yesterday, when I did it myself, it was very non-invasive the information, and just might have to be successful. I'm not saying that's good or indifferent. Guys haven't yet filed my 2019 tax return. They use 2018 information, so I can guarantee you the system is working as intended by and large. And so I went in and put in my basic information that said, "Hey, we expect to send this to you on the 13th yesterday," and let that confirm it. So it's working. It doesn't take a lot. Apparently, some of our sound is a little choppy, and we apologize for that. We were trying to keep everything up and clean, but it was too choppy. Apologies for the tech side of things with everything.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't help that Julie and I have been doing this for a really long time, and we're really passionate about what we do, and so that comes out in speaking. So it can be a little fast. We'll try and calm down a little bit so that we can.
There's one extra piece, thank you, with those who do not have to file a tax return. If you're not required to file a tax return and you do have children under 17 years old, the system does not automatically know that. You would need to go in and utilize that resource to properly allocate the children you have under 17 that you would have claimed on your tax return so that you get that extra $500 per kid. And so that's something that you would need to do. It's not automatic as far as that piece.
Okay. One other thing that I want to make sure to cover is so that people understand. A bunch of folks received their stimulus payments starting Saturday of last week. Okay. There is what I colloquially refer to as the first wave of payments. Basically, the federal government's coming in and saying, if you have filed your 2018 or 2019 tax return and either had a refund that was direct deposited and you qualify based on those numbers, then basically you make it in the first wave of these stimulus payments. Okay. Yep, exactly. Yeah, sure. And so they're sending these out as quickly as they can. The whole point to this, right, is the stimulus is to try and put money in people's pockets so they can subsist, so they can buy things and stimulate the economy, right? And so in order to do this, they need to make it happen sooner rather than later. They want to get this issued quickly. The problem is with government in any shape or form is they have to make sure and check all their boxes, right? They gotta dot all their I's, cross all their T's. There's the red tape behind the thing, the bureaucracy of it, if you will. And in some of these cases, it's just making sure that it's being done correctly. But there is going to be some delays for some folks. Let's talk about one hypothetical scenario in which you have not filed your 2018 or 2019 tax return. You're not going to be the first wave of these stimulus payments, right? But let's say 3 months from now, you file 18 and 19. Right? If you need help with that, we'd love to assist you with that. Okay? But if that comes around, then you file 2, 3, 4 months from now. They have stated that these stimulus payments are going to be paid all the way until the end of the year. Okay, meaning when you receive it the first time, your payment is done. They have talked about potentially doing a second round of these. We have no solid or concrete information on that. Okay, so I'm gonna take that hypothetical and set it to the side.
Second round being updating your information. 18 was filed, then you later filed 19. If they'll modify or increase your payment, that's second round.
No, I'm talking about another stimulus payment, another $1,200.
Got it.
Right. The point is that the president has said that he will do what is necessary. Correct. What is necessary, we don't know. Right? Nobody knows. Anybody who tells you they know for sure is lying to you. Right? We're dealing with this stuff as we get it. Okay. The point is we're not going to delve into that today, but we're not taking it off the table as an option either. And so I don't want to present you information as if it is final. I'm presenting you information that is final up to this point. Right. And so right now it's April the 16th, I believe. And so it is the 16th, right? It's not the 17th yet. I don't know. We lose track of days during this time period because, as you can imagine, we're a super crazy business. Okay, but the point is, we're just now after what would have been the April 15th deadline. Of course, the deadline got pushed to July the 15th. But in this case, if you have yet to file your 2018 and 19 tax return, when you do, you will get this. So this isn't a one-time event. This is just the first wave. Okay, and as people file over the rest of the year, let's say they didn't qualify for it on their 2018 tax return because their adjusted gross income was too high. But now in 2019, their income was lower and now they would qualify. Well, maybe the IRS did the calculation and said, oh, this hypothetical client does not qualify. This hypothetical person doesn't qualify to receive the stimulus payment. But that's just because they haven't filed 19 yet. Because, of course, the filing deadline is July the 15th, right? So they just haven't filed yet. Well, when they do, then the IRS will send out their stimulus payment, assuming they qualify for at least a partial amount. Okay, so we got first wave, and then we have the additional waves that will happen in the future. Now, piggybacking off of that is we have folks that, based on their 2018 information, would not qualify, but 2019 they would. They file 19, they receive it. Okay, great. But what about the opposite? What about when we have someone who has a 2018 tax return and they qualify based on that? And the federal government, already having pulled that information, has submitted their stimulus check. Charlie received his stimulus check based on his 2018 tax return, right? And so, but there are some folks who, based on 2019, or I'll say 2018, they would qualify. And for 19, they would not qualify.
Such as if I won the lottery in 19, that would be great, but I didn't. Supposing I did, I have an extra $300,000 of income. 2019, no stimulus, but I told you I already got it.
Yep. So now what does Charlie, who just won the lottery, do, right? Other than party. Yep. Not too hard, though. We got to be fiscally responsible around here. But other than throwing a small party, Charlie is going to save that money. But then what Charlie's going to do is Charlie's going to understand, because he's going to have expert advice from a tax advisor or loan associates, that he needs to set that money aside. Or if he's going to use it, he needs to be prepared that is going to reconcile on the 2020 tax filing. Because 2020, I imagine there's going to be some reporting of what your 2019 adjusted gross income was and how much you received on the stimulus payment. I hope that they're going to give us as tax advisors the opportunity to reconcile that without an IRS letter or them levying your bank account. I can't expect that. I don't expect that will happen. I expect that they will try and do this as best they can. But just keep in mind that there are situations in which they use older data to qualify you. And then based on newer data, you don't qualify, in which case you would have to pay some or all of that stimulus payment back on the 2020 tax filing. So there are some information outlets that are making it sound like everyone will have to pay this back, that this is just kind of like an interest-free loan. But I hope after you've heard us today, you've heard that most people who get this just qualify to receive it and will not have to pay it back. There just are some that may have to pay it back. Other than that, Charlie, were there any other little tidbits that you wanted to make sure and cover?
Yes. So piggybacking on what you were talking about as far as the 18 and 19, there are some folks who are doing this intentionally. I'm intentionally waiting to file my 2019 taxes because my 18 income is lower and I get more on that. If you're in that case, hopefully you look at that and acknowledge, again, reconciling. It's a couple $100, okay. There will be some people who this happens to unintentionally. You're not talking about, I would expect, thousands of dollars. You're not going to have a giant change in income from 18 to 19. Though it's possible, these people are going to be in the minority. So please don't stress about that kind of thing. Again, those who do it intentionally, hopefully with good advice, you know what you're counting on, and that's fine. Those who are unintentionally happen to, again, it shouldn't be but hundreds of dollars, and it will just naturally absorb into your normal tax return that it's captured in 2020. It'll happen then, nothing soon. The other part of it is with everything going on, bad guys are also trying to jump on the bandwagon with everything here too. So please be cautious with your information with everything. Remember, you're going to the IRS.gov website, nowhere else involved in this. So they did actually publicize something about the scams and stuff, some notes about that. So I'm just going to read them because it's viral. The IRS will not, very important, will not call, email, or text you to verify or request your financial, banking, or personal information. This is their website. This is their information. Watch out for websites, social media, to request your information. The official website, they say it again, IRS.gov. Don't open surprise emails that look like they're coming from the IRS or click on attachments or links. It's always a safe thing for emails, but this is also just trying to over that. Taxpayers should not provide personal financial information to engage with potential people online or over the phone. Moving forward, you can. They have a phishing.irs.gov. You can send forward emails to and delete them. And then you can always go to their website for information. But again, the most important one is the first thing. IRS is not calling, not emailing, and not texting you. I did have a client email me the other day saying, oh, hey, the IRS is asking for extra information about XYZ. And I immediately went, what do you mean the IRS is asking you for this extra information? What is going on? Did you respond to an email or a call or what? And he responded gratefully. It was not a bad situation. He goes, no, I'm sorry. I went on their website and I'm trying to think and it's asking me something extra. So, okay, no problem. That's okay. If you initiated the contact on the IRS.gov website, yes, they're going to ask you for extra information. But they're not calling you on the phone, right? They're not sending you an email with this thing. I read an article this morning talking about how potentially the IRS may, like in a couple of weeks, send you a letter confirming hey, we sent you this via this manner on your stimulus. It's more just a fact check. If they send you a letter that says this is what you got, and that's what you got, you should be fine. I can't guarantee it. It's happening on article website, IRS website, so it was just a great result. It was just interesting to see. I just know in the back of my mind, maybe it comes. It's the same if it lines up. There's no action required. You're just confirming it. If it comes to you and you have not gotten it, go to the IRS website, use the tool that's there to check on the status of your payment. That's the resource. You can ignore what's there. The resource is available for them.
It'll be interesting to see if the panic attacks or anxiety attacks reported by hospitals or therapists increase when those letters start getting sent out. Nobody likes to get a letter from the IRS. But don't worry, there are more palpitations. Right? If that letter comes in, open it. If you have questions, give us a call. Any other little tidbits? I think we've covered everything today.
Pretty good to cover. I think stuff I have put together and written. We covered what we decided to
Okay.
do.
Fantastic. I think, in fact, it's such a great job that we don't have any questions. So hopefully, if you had a question and it's already been addressed, then you're square. But if you do have any questions, we are available. Give us a call or shoot us an email. Our doors are closed for the rest of this week, and so we're not taking walk-ins or walk-in questions or anything like that. Please call us. So we're trying to keep our social distancing measures in place and be safe. We hope all of you are safe as well, and we hope that you will continue to reach out to us and let us know if we can meet your needs. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great day.